Now, next, undue influence. What is influence? Basically, it is a form of pengaruh lah. Influence tu pengaruh lah. What kind of pengaruh? Undue. Undue basically means something that should not be there. Okay. So, what is undue influence? Now, this is defined under section 16. Section 16 says that to form undue influence, there has to be two things. What are the two things? One is that there must be a domination of will by one person over the other person. Domination of will. Domination means that you can control. Will, bukan wasiat Will tu maksudnya kehendak. Alright, so you can control kehendak orang lain tu. So there must be a domination of will by one person over the other. But domination is not enough. There has to be unfair advantage. What is unfair advantage? Basically, you get something which is not fair. You shouldn't have gotten it in the first place. Keuntungan yang tidak sepatutnya, yang tidak adil. Obtain because of the domination of will. Disebabkan you boleh pengaruh orang tu, you dapat keuntungan yang tak sepatutnya ataupun yang tidak adil. Alright, so in what situations can you say that there is domination of will? Now, Section 16 Clause 2 says there are three types of relationships whereby you can presume. Ingat, sini dia presume. Presume maksudnya kita boleh anggap yang ada domination of will. Tapi bila dalam presumption, macam juga intention, I'm sure you all have learned intention to create legal relation, ada presumption of law juga di situ. Now, presumption ni boleh disangkal. It can be rebutted. Alright, so, but the law says, Section 16 Clause 2 says, you can presume. You boleh presume that there is domination of will dalam tiga keadaan ini. Firstly, where a person holds a real or apparent authority over another person. Real or apparent authority, which means that he has the authority over another person. Dia ada kuasa terhadap seseorang yang lain. Macam mana? Well, maybe in terms of the relationship of husband and wife, the husband has a real or apparent authority over the wife, or between a parent and his or her children, children who have reached the age of majority or who are still under the age of majority. So you've got the real or apparent authority over the other, right? Or in terms of employer and employee, for example, the employer asked the employee to sign a contract, although he did not force. Now, this is where you have to differentiate between coercion and undue influence, because some students get confused between coercion and undue influence. Coercion, dia ada elemen paksaan, ugut. Tapi undue influence dia tak ada. Dia tak ada ugut, tapi cara dia. Alright, because of the authority that they have, the domination of will. Alright, so the other person rasa macam terdesak, terpaksa setuju. Okay, for example, the employer asked the employee, alright, I want you to sign this, what do you call it, this agreement that you will not claim for extra bonus. Alright, so maybe the employee, it feels like, if he doesn't sign, that he won't claim for extra bonus or extra overtime and all that, then he will not be dismissed. If he doesn't sign it, then he will be dismissed, he will be terminated. So even though the employer did not threaten him that, but because they are in a position whereby the employee is subjected to the employer's authority. Alright, so maybe he feel that he is being dominated, his will is being dominated by the employer. Alright. Now, second situation is where a person stands in a fiduciary relation to the other. What is fiduciary relation? Fiduciary relation basically is when one person has a relationship of trust over another person. So let's say, for example, between a patient and his doctor. So the patient tells a lot of things to the doctor. Alright, and the doctor, while attending to the client, sometimes kan ada doktor suka borak-borak sambil treat the client, the patient rather, and dia treat the patient, dia borak-borak sambil tu. So sambil borak tu mungkin the patient tells the doctor, I've got this land that I want to sell, or this property that I want to sell, and then the doctor said, okay, I'm also looking for a property that I want to buy. So how much are you going to sell it? All right. So maybe the patient feels that terhutang budi ke pada doktor tu and terpaksalah bagi jual pada harga yang rendah and so on. So there's a relationship of trust, a fiduciary relationship which makes a person able to dominate the will of another person, or a priest. For example, a priest or any form of spiritual leader. All right, maybe that person confess a lot of things, minta nasihat macam-macam daripada orang tu, benda-benda peribadi dicerita pada priest tu ataupun spiritual leader tu. Lepas tu they enter into a contract dan dia rasa dominated by the will of that spiritual leader. Or even when you're doing when a person is undergoing counseling sessions with another person, that's when a lot of things come out. So in that situation, when someone knows a lot of things about you, all right, then that person may be dominated by the other person. So these are relationships that you can presume that there is domination of will. Another situation is when a person enters into a contract with another person whose mental capacity is affected because of his age, because of his illness, or mental or bodily distress. Now, don't get confused with a person who is insane, bukan. Remember, orang yang insane cannot enter into a contract because he does not have the capacity to enter into a contract. Here is where you're talking about a person whose mind will be affected because of his physical injury, perhaps, because of his sickness. Dia waras, tapi because of his illness, alright, he feels like he is dependent on another person. For example, let's say this person has been katalah he is suffering from a disease, or maybe he's suffering from a very critical illness, alright, so dia sentiasa terbaring saja, so dia perlukan the help of another person to do everyday chores for him. So in the process orang tu suruh memandangkan dah tak boleh bawa kereta ni tak nak jual ke? Jual lah kat saya. Saya nak beli kereta ni, and so that person kan tak jual kereta kan, dia ni kan tak nak datang lagi tolong dia. So that kind of situations whereby you can presume domination of will. He is in a physically incapacitated situation. He depends on another person. Alright, so he enters into a contract. And remember, now, it is not just these three relationships. There must also be unfair advantage. So if you enter into a contract with anyone in these three situations tapi tak ada unfair advantage, then there is no undue influence. But if there is unfair advantage and you are in a contract with any of these situations, then you can presume there is domination of will, and therefore there is undue influence. Okay. Now, so there are a number of cases on undue influence. Now, firstly, relationship to show domination of will, such as husband and wife, which I mentioned just now. Salwa Thanim against Haji Abdullah. This is a situation whereby the wife had initially, she was asked by the husband to transfer her property to his brothers. So although she was not willing, but because of the husband having real or apparent authority over her, so she agreed to transfer the property. But subsequently, she changed her mind and she did not want to proceed with the contract. And the court decided that, yes, there was undue influence because, she was being dominated by the husband. And there was, of course, unfair advantage. Second situation is Datuk Jaginder Singh against Tara Rajaratnam. This is a case whereby it involved a lawyer. Remember, between a lawyer and his client, there is fiduciary relationship. You see, fiduciary relationship of trust can arise in many situations. Doctor and the patient, the counselor and the patient, lawyer and his client, right? A priest and his believers or his followers, all right, and so on. So here in this case, the lawyer asked the client to transfer certain property in his name. Now that is not something that lawyers will do, but because the client was under the impression that the lawyer knows best, that because he's handling the case and all that, so that's why he she agreed to transfer the property. Alright, but subsequently, the client realized that this was not what is normally done and wanted to set aside the contract. So there was undue influence, and there was undue influence. Next is under section 16 clause 3, where the agreement is unconscionable. Unconscionable, which means that it doesn't make sense at all. Tak masuk di akal. Yeah? If something it is unconscionable, any reasonable person would not want to agree to it. So which means that he is being dominated by the will of another person, or that there is undue influence. For example, the case of Chait Singh against Budin bin Abdullah. Now, what happened in this case was that the contract was regarding a loan, which had interest up to 36%. Banyak tu, tinggi tu, 36%. Bank pun tak charge tinggi sangat macam tu. So it is very unconscionable, very unreasonable. Anyone in the right mind would want to enter into such contract. Yeah, so there's unfair advantage here, and it is unconscionable. Therefore, the contract is voidable because of undue influence. Yeah. Now, what happens if you see when someone dominates the will of another person, it is not that that person cannot get advice from someone else. Let's say, for example, Ali, let's say Ali is a doctor and Abu is his patient, and Ali wanted Abu to sell Abu's property to Ali, all right? But it's not that Abu must, he's not being forced. Remember, it's not like coercion. He's not being forced to do it. He can get advice from other people. So if he has gotten advice from other people, then there is no undue influence. If he has asked advice from someone else, let's say he goes to a real estate agent and asks, okay, property saya ni, doktor ni nak beli harga sekian-sekian. Is it reasonable? Alright, so if the real estate agent says, no, actually rendah sangat tu, harga market value sekian-sekian. So, you boleh, dia dah dapat advice ataupun dia pergi jumpa lawyer and dia dah dapat advice, alright, and dia tak nak teruskan. So there is no undue influence because you're not being confined in a place and forced to sign the agreement, but rather you have the ability to get advice. So there's no undue influence in that situation. However, yang bagi advice tu mestilah tahu the whole facts of the situation. He must be independent, dia tidak memihak kepada siapa-siapa, and dia mestilah tahu all the facts. For example, in the case of Encik Noria against Syed Ali bin Omar. Now, in this case, this lady wanted to transfer her property to her nephew sebab dia memang bergantung pada nephew dia banyak tolong dia macam-macam. So, she wanted to transfer the property, alright, but before that, she asked a lawyer. She asked the lawyer whether she can do it. And she asked for legal advice. And the lawyer said, it's okay, boleh. Alright. However, in that case, the lawyer did not know that the property that she wanted to give to the nephew was the whole property that she had. Remember, kalau kita nak bagi kita nak bagi property kepada seseorang, kita nak hadanahkan property kepada orang, kita tak boleh we cannot exclude our lawful beneficiaries. Kita tak boleh bagi seluruh property kepada seorang waris sedangkan waris lain ada. So the lawyer was not aware of that when he advised. Dia bagi nasihat, boleh transaction ni boleh, transfer ni boleh. Dia tak tahu itu adalah segala-gala property yang this lady had. So there was undue influence. Alright, so effect of undue influence is that the contract is voidable. Macam juga coercion, the effect is that the contract is voidable. Cuma section je berbeza. Kalau coercion tadi section 19, undue influence is section 20. But the effect is the same. Section 65 says you have a choice. So orang yang being dominated, the will dia being dominated tu, dia yang ada pilihan, bukan orang yang membuat domination of will tu. And so he has a choice either to proceed with the contract or to rescind it. Again, if he rescinds it, whatever benefits that he has obtained, dia dapat duit ke untuk bayaran property tu ke ataupun apa-apa keuntungan yang dia dapat, he has to return it to the other person. Okay.